Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for joining us to this very timely, very important conversation that we were able to organize thanks to our friend and colleague, Dr. Avi Picard. Dr. Avi Picard, who you can see already on the screen, is a colleague from Bar-Ilan University, and just a couple of months ago, he played a very important role in helping our Concordia summer program be such a success in Israel. He gave several guest lectures and took our students on field trips in the Negev, in the southern part of Israel, part of the country that has changed tremendously over the past couple of days. And Avi is joining us now, not from the classroom, but from the ground in Israel. And he's not wearing, as you see, his professional professorial garb. But like many Israelis, he has answered the call of the country, and he is serving his duty as a reserve officer. And yet he found time, he reached out to talk to our students and members of the community who want to hear and know about the situation in Israel as it's unfolding on the ground from the perspective of a professor, a teacher, and a colleague. And so Avi is not going to meet with us as a military spokesperson. He's not meeting us as a government spokesperson. He's here as a teacher and a colleague. So Avi, without further ado, I would like to turn this over to you, to us, and maybe let me just perhaps start with a couple of questions to help contextualize where you are, where we are, and then turn it over to you. So Avi, tell us, you're not in the classroom. As I said, you're wearing a uniform. What's happening? Where are you? Not concretely, but
I'm in Israel.
You're in Israel. I see that you constantly look above your head. Why is that? What's the situation where you are? Why are you wearing a military uniform? Tell us what brought you to where you are. I mean, less than a week ago, you and I were emailing with each other about planning your sabbatical trip to North America, and you would be teaching maybe a class in Montreal. And now I'm talking to Avi wearing a military uniform. What happened and what's happening?
Definitely. Oh, if you cannot hear me or something, I'm not sure the connection will be always good. I would say something. We start with something. It's unprecedented. I am teaching about Israel history, military history, history of wars in Israel. I just organized a course about 50 years for the Yom Kippur War. That was a very shocking war, and definitely the situation of October 7th is unprecedented in Israel, when about 1,000 people, most of them civilians, were killed and massacred in one day. It was a complete surprise, not because we thought that they have the Hamas, the Gaza Strip, have no motivation to do such things, but because in a way I'm not speaking as a soldier, I'm not speaking as an expert in the Southern Front, I'm speaking as a civilian, and we were sure that we have such technology that can actually keep them away of crossing the borders, and they won't be able to do it. So when we start to hear the news, it was a holiday. I was in the synagogue, and we start to hear the news. Actually, we heard early in the morning sirens because of rocket missile. That's something that we knew that existed. And it happened not all over the country, but when we heard that it's not, the rocket missile was actually a misleading of the attack, the real attack, we were completely surprised twice from the point of view of intelligence that we didn't know anything, and from the point of view of how bad the army reacted in the first hours. I think one thing is important to know. We had recently a war in Ukraine, and the picture we saw in Ukraine was civilians running away from the country and looking for refuge. And what is happening in Israel is that civilians are running into the conflict. And many of the people who were killed were actually people that had arms because of different wars they are serving, and they just ran into, a soldier in vacation and so on. And that's a completely surprise, unprecedented. And I think even the Hamas militant did not expected such a success from the point of view, and I think we did not accepted such brutality. We knew that their mission is to kill every Israeli, no matter military, settlers, civilians, a young person, old person, women, children, but the brutality that was shown, and I'm trying to avoid those brutal clips that they publish, was definitely a surprise. However, since the first day, and people were called, and I'm in reserve, and I think not if some of you know about Israel history, we are talking about a nation in uniform. We are talking about the fact that every Israeli is serving his mandatory service in the army, but after his mandatory service is doing his reserve duty. But in the recent 20 years, very few, the army didn't had no need for so many people in the reserve, and I'll say that few are doing reserve, but it's less than 30% of the population. And if a reserve service was, when I joined the reserve 33 years ago, from the day you ended your mandatory service, about usually 21, 22, to 55 years old, and then it was shortened to 40 years old, and I serving in a position that I could volunteer. I passed my 40 years old 16 years ago, but I volunteer, and I'm very happy I did so, because the most frustrating situation is being in this situation and being at home because you are not called anymore to the reserve. I was called, and I have 3 sons that were called as well. They are also reservists. They also finished their mandatory service, and they are reservists, and they all came. And one of them, that is a platoon commander, told me that his major problem is that the people who left the platoon because they reached the age want to join the unit now, and he don't have enough gear for them, and he just need to tell them not to come. And I was called, and I was told, just wait. I was called privately, talking with my commander, and say, just wait for the formal call phone, and the call phone didn't came. So I just took my car. It was a holiday. Usually, as a religious Jew, I'm not driving car in holiday, but this was a duty, and everybody just left and took the car, and we see Israelis that are abroad that are rushing into the country, and we see civilians that are not in the army trying to help in every way they can to help the refugees from the West Negev, we called it Otef Aza, the surrounding of the Gaza Strip. That's actually a short strip around. In my home, I'm not at home, but my wife told me that she's hosting a family from Sderot, and my town that is in the Negev, but in the eastern Negev, so actually very quiet, is hosting a lot of people, and people are looking all over how can they help the soldiers and how can they help the refugees from the surrounding Gaza Strip. The army, all the reserve army was called. It's unprecedented the amount of people that were called. The last time that all the military was called was 50 years ago in the Yom Kippur War. By then, almost every man was actually serving in the reserve, but the amount of population in Israel was a lot smaller. Now, Israel is 3 times bigger, so although only perhaps 30% of the people are doing reserve, the amount of reservists is the biggest ever in Israel history. And as I said, it's not 100% of attendance, is about 120% of attendance, because even people tell me, you are so smart to ask to continue to volunteer. We are frustrated that we are not volunteering and we have no unit to join, and we are trying to do something. So from this point of view of morale, I think, the chief of staff said it started with a big problem for us, but it will finish with a big problem for them. I don't know what will be the policy. I now just take off my units, my uniform. I'm taking as a civilian. I think, and I was part of it in a way, since the end of 20th century, we were in a situation that we were afraid of every single casualties. We were not anymore a nation in uniform, and we say that we should and we could have military operation with 0 or very little casualties. And in a way, it's not the first time that there is a war between Israel and the Hamas government in Gaza. But every war never went to the end, because Israel, and again, it's important to say, I'm talking as a private citizen. Israel was afraid of casualties and of kidnapping soldiers or civilians, because the brutality of Hamas is such that the thing that they are doing to captive soldiers or civilians is so bad that Israel was willing to pay every price for that. And because we were afraid to actually do something, because fear of casualties or captured, we got a lot of casualties, unprecedented in history, in Israel history, and people say there is never happened since the Holocaust that so many Jews were killed in one day. In every Israel war, we didn't have such a number, and the majority of them are civilians. We got captured, and we got casualties in numbers. We cannot understand it yet, because we don't have all the names and we don't have all the details, and we don't know everything yet. But I think the majority of the Israelis are willing to have more casualties, but actually be able to act to finish the control of this brutal dictator regime of Hamas in the Gaza Strip that is actually a problem for Israel now, but this kind of regime is a problem for the whole world. And we were willing to be the neighbors because we were afraid of the high price they are asking for us. And I think privately, and I know that I can be part of the price. We don't need to be afraid of this price because we will pay it anyway. So let's pay it with an attempt. I don't know what will be in the end, but with an attempt to stop this regime ability to act.
Avi, when we met last time in Israel with our students,
I don't hear you well.
Yes, is it better now? Is it better?
No, can you put your mic closer to your mouth? Or?
Is it better now?
A little bit. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Perhaps it will be.
Avi,
I have some noise around me. I will put some earphone. Perhaps it will be better.
Okay. Is this better now?
One moment.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Great.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes. Very good. Thank you,
okay. Yeah. So
Avi, last time we met in person in Israel when you toured with our group, Israel was in the midst of deep political and social divisions. And now what we are seeing is a completely different country. It's as if the divisions had never happened. It's images, discussions of unity that dominate. Can you tell us about this transition? And can you tell us about how you experience this within your community, you as an individual, this movement from deep division to tremendous brotherhood, sisterhood, unity that we see now?
Okay, I can tell you that in my military unit, that actually where I have people from different point of view, nobody is talking politics, and we were even asked by our commander, don't talk politics, even when you are in a break, don't talk politics. It's bad for you. I'm afraid, perhaps because I am, my Facebook feed is full with different people. Some of the people are not in this unity. Are definitely there was a crash. There was a huge problem of intelligence, military, and so on. And for some people that were always against the government, it's a good opportunity to blame the government. I myself think that we need to wait for that. We cannot ask the prime minister to resign 2 days after this situation. We definitely need to continue and face the situation. And I don't know what will happen later on. Definitely, you're right. Israel is in a deep division, and it is not a good time. Some people are still in this division but I think, and I do hope it will be every hour from now, because all parties accepted that we'll have an emergency unity government. I don't know. I didn't follow the news the last hours, but I think the talks are advancing, and I think that although some, one of the problems was that the protesters against the government said that we won't volunteer anymore to the army because of this government. The moment the situation started, They said everybody who is called must to go. And the organization, Brother in Arms, that was promoting the not volunteering, organized volunteers to bring soldiers from their home to their bases. And from this point of view, I think that there is a unity accepting that, the big enemy is not inside us. It's not between us. It's outside of us. And we need to do everything to fight them. And I think there is a kind of consensus that we should be engaged in a conflict that will have a price but cannot finish like the last, 5 or 10 conflicts we had with the Hamas regime in Gaza since it came to power in 2006. It must end in another way. And I think the Israelis that were willing to give a lot of sacrifice in the first 4 decades of Israel became spoiled in the last 3 decades of Israel. And now they realized that it was too early, became spoiled like that. We are still fighting for our survival. I don't think it's actually for our survival. Hamas had no power to erase Israel. But the main role of a state, of a government, of a military organization is to protect civilians. And Israel never paid such a high price in civilians' casualty in its whole history. Even in the War of Independence that took for a year, in 1948, and was 6,000 casualties. There was perhaps 1,000, 1,500 civilians. The majority were soldiers, and it was for a year. Now we had about 1,000 casualties, 80% of them civilians in one day. I think that the Israelis are willing to sacrifice now, change the situation for good. And we are aware that we will pay a price, but we understand that we have no other choice. And I think there is kind of patriotism that is, and I think, your support and the support of almost every Western democratic countries is important. I am afraid that, when this militant, brutal regime of Hamas will start to show pictures of the situation in Gaza, and actually I'm sure the situation will go very bad there. Perhaps the situation will change because Israel had a policy. When you are bombing a house that there are Hamas leader or headquarters inside, you are giving a warning. You are just putting a small bomb that do no damage on the top of the building to let everybody knows to leave the building, and then you are bombing the building. Now, there are some bombing of buildings that have been done without that. Israel called all civilians leave the main cities where actually the headquarters of Hamas is based under a hospital, the Shifa hospital in the town of Gaza. Under it is the bunkers that is the headquarters of Hamas. They are hiding behind hospitals. So I don't know what will go on. Gaza Strip is depending on electricity from Israel. Israel stop electricity. It definitely will create a huge humanistic problem, but this kind of electricity, this kind of communication help those terrorists to carry out this brutal killing. I think the equation changed. And I do hope that after it was so clear who started and what are the methods they are using that the support of the democratic world will continue. And I do hope, although that the population in Gaza will understand the problem, although from the few clips I saw, that you saw what happened to civilians captured, taken to Gaza. They were getting pushed and harassed and later on killed, not by the Hamas militants, but by the civilian population of Gaza. I don't know what happened to them. How such a big group can become so brutal? I don't know. But the support of you, I hope that everybody here are in support of us, is very, very important. It won't be easy to continue to support us, but please do. Please continue to support us.
Thank you, Avi. And it's important to note that one of our viewers, Natasha, posted a message earlier in the chat about a gathering that's taking place outside the consulate of Israel in Montreal. And I see somebody, Isaac, is actually sharing images of this. And no, I think that there were, of course, vigils and rallies all over North America in the Jewish communities in support of Israel. Certainly, our governments of Quebec and Canada also came out very strongly condemning the atrocities. So this is important. Avi, you mentioned Hamas as the enemy. One big question that's on many people's mind is whether this conflict will remain localized in the south, or what are the possibilities and the prospects for another front opening up in the north. Is that something that worries you? Is that something that you care about in your role, in your presence, or you're focusing on where you are and on the south and Hamas right now? Or
no, actually, Hezbollah and Hamas are both proxies of Iran, and they are definitely collaborating. I'm not sure. I think they were not collaborating in the surprise attack of the day before yesterday. But Hamas is hoping that Hezbollah would start, and we had few things. I don't know if Hezbollah is waiting that we will waste our forces in the south to attack. I don't know if they are afraid because they understand that after such a terrible situation, Israelis will react in different way it reacted in the past. I assume that Hezbollah is preparing. I know that Israel is prepared in both fronts, in the south and the north, and also in the east, around the Palestinian cities. They are actually facing three fronts. For now, it seems that the territories, Palestinian Authority region is quiet. It is very important. Hamas was hoping that, like May 2021, when the Israeli civilians, the Israeli Arab citizens were supporting a Hamas attack with, really, I don't know, but clash between Jews and Arabs, both Israelis neighbors. Now all the political leaders of the Israeli Arabs said that they are condemning Hamas violence. They are asking Hamas not to ask Israeli Arabs to join them. And we see the amount of Arab civilians bringing staff to soldier and supporting them and helping the police to find in the city of Rad inflators from Gaza Strip. So I think this is a big change, and it's important that it took place. The Israeli Arabs are not like some Israeli Jews were the fifth column that is now created from inside. No, they are against it. I assume Hezbollah will try to do something if Israel won't be prepared. I know that Iran is asking all its proxies, not only in Lebanon, but all over the Arab world, to join the fight against Israel. The Syrian regime, I don't know how much power he had, but they are all into it, and Israel is prepared in all fronts. It will be long, I think. It won't take 6 days.
Avi, thank you. Let me ask one more question, and then I would like to turn it over to our audience to ask questions in the chat. There is already a question from our former student, Victor, whom you met. Might remember him from the summer journey. Avi, were it not for the war, you would be teaching now on campus at Bar-Ilan. Is there a sense of when the academic year might resume?
No idea. No, everything stopped. I now was about to head a conference in my city about 50 years for the Yom Kippur War. That was a terrible war in October 1973, and I was so busy that I asked, just don't forget to announce everybody that it's cancelled. Everything stopped. I don't know when university will start. I'm in a sabbatical. But I don't know. Everything stops. School stops. Things will continue in a way, but just remember, 300,000 person, most of them men, but a lot of women as well, are recruited. So a lot of things are not functioning now. It will take time. I think things will get back. That's the situation of a nation in uniform. We are not career soldiers. We have jobs. We have families. I mentioned I'm volunteering because of my age. 3 of my boys are doing their service. They have young children, and then my wife and my daughter-in-laws are all into it together and trying to keep morale up.
Avi, we certainly look forward to peaceful and quieter days when you can resume your sabbatical and come to visit us in Montreal and join our faculty in a research capacity. Avi, let me turn to the chat in the little time that we have.
Just read for me the question.
Yes, of course. The first question is from Victor, and the question is the following. What is expected of reservists in the current situation? Will they be sent along with the regular forces or act as a support element instead?
Like the regular forces are made for units that are built with mandatory service and reserve. It's the same. You have in the same unit sometimes. It's a regular unit, but for in case of emergency, you have many positions that are being held by reservists, and reserve units, like other units, are exactly the same. There is no difference. They need to exercise a little bit more. Thank God we have those few days. People are getting back to know. People in reserve are being called hopefully once a year. to exercise, and they know what they do. Yes, so the reserve will be
side by side, the regular
side
forces.
by side. Yes, that's the regular forces, reserve and mandatory, and they are in the same unit sometimes.
Thank you. The next question is from Jennifer Solomon from Concordia University. Let me just welcome you, Jennifer, in particular, because you used to work at the Azrieli Institute, and it's very important that you're joining us today. So thank you. Jennifer's question is the following: how shall we remind people that Israel was attacked first and that it has the right to defend itself? Because the media is not particularly helpful in this situation.
I don't think that this time there is a question who was attacking first. They were proud of it. They were proud that they got into Israel. They were proud of killing civilians, of capturing old people, of actually getting into houses and killing everybody, getting into a music festival and killing everybody. Part of the huge amount of casualties is this huge music festival that was taking place not far away from the border, but in a place that, people are hiking and a nice place, and they got into this festival. I don't know if they knew it in advance or no, and just start to kill everybody. I was never part of this kind of festival, but I assume that after a night of the music and perhaps alcohol and so on, people were not, I don't know, but a lot of casualties are from the people who were just in this festival and music festival and just, were being slaughtered. And I don't think there is any kind of question who attacked first. And the fact that they just took old person and children and mothers with babies, they killed them and they took them as captured. And we caught some documents they had saying that if somebody tried to take captured, but if somebody is doing noise or problem, just kill him. And this was the order given to them. So I don't think there is any question about it.
Thank you, Avi. Few more questions, and I'm watching the time because I know that it's already late in the day for you. So we'll let you go in good time. But if you don't mind, just a few more questions. The next one is from Asfar Adib, and the question is the following: no democratic election happened in the West Bank and in Gaza during the last 17 years, resulting in representative authoritarian regimes for Palestinians who deserve democratic rights, also like the rest of the world. Is there any way that this scenario can be changed, which should also make this better for the rest of the region? How to bring democracy to...
It's a big question. I will talk now as an historian. Unfortunately, I don't think that there are a lot, and I'm not, racist or something, but if we are looking in the Middle East, there are no democratic Arab countries. There are no ex-leader in the Arab world. A leader is the leader of a country until his death in natural cause or revolution. And right, the Palestinians did not carry out democratic elections, not because of Israel, because of their own decision. Because when they had a democratic election in 2006, the Hamas got a lot of seats, and the Palestinian Authority, led by Fatah, decided that they are not accepting this kind of results. So a civil war started, and Hamas took over Gaza, and the Fatah, under the Palestinian Authority, is taking over the West Bank. And both of them do not want to have re-elections because they assume that they won't be re-elected. I don't know. So, yes, you can say that, the civilians in Gaza did not support this kind of government. But I don't know. I see the pictures it seems I know there was protest against, but I don't know. This is the government, and this is the people that had no mercy on babies, and I don't know how can you say okay, but we can put apart the civilians and the government. We say civilians get away from the crowded places where Hamas is in control, and I don't know. I'm not the government. I'm not military officials. I don't know what will be actually the policy, but I know that there is no way you can attack Hamas regime without any civilian casualties. And I think there was the question again of who was asking the question, Natalie, about Jennifer, who started. Jennifer, the media is already focusing on the death in Gaza. Yes, you're right. There will be death in Gaza. Israel is trying to focus on the leaders of Hamas and the neighborhood that was completely destroyed, Rimal neighborhood in the Gaza Strip, is the neighborhood where the leader of Hamas lives. Hamas was focusing on babies and old person and people in the music festival. And this is a huge difference. And yes, it will be hard. And I don't know if I need to choose if my children will be killed or if my enemy's children will be killed. What will be your choice? I don't know if I'm willing to give up my children's lives or the lives of those who are hiding behind their children.
Thank you. Avi, do you think that the aggression by Hamas may have been also a bid to derail the Israeli-Saudi ties that were getting closer? This is also a question that's on many people's minds. Thank you, Pierre.
I don't think so. It was prepared for a year. It didn't start it now. Hamas was trying to attack Israel all the time. The assumption was that they are afraid. They don't willing to pay the price they pay in 2021. But this kind of fear is psychological factors that you don't know if it's working or not until the moment you see that it's not working, and it's not. They were preparing that. It had nothing to do with the new development. It had nothing to do with actually the Israeli government and the Netanyahu regime as well, because they said we prefer it for a year. A year ago, Netanyahu was not in power. It was prepared well. I don't think they were hoping, as I mentioned, for such success from their point of view. They understand that they actually beat the lion, and now all Israelis are united. And I think I said it's unprecedented the amount of people called to the army. And when you had Israel full military capacity, it's a big force. And I hope the Israeli government will use it.
And maybe let me just share one more question, and I do apologize to those members of the audience whose questions we didn't get to, but perhaps we can follow up after the event by email, or there will be other opportunities for discussing this unfolding tragedy, really, and that's now turning into a war in Israel. Avi, one question from Madalena is about the rockets that are coming in and that are directly towards Arab settlements and towns and cities like Bethlehem, Abu Ghosh, or even East Jerusalem. what sense does this make? It doesn't seem logical.
You assume there's a logic. No, the main thing that these rockets are statistics. They are not. No, they just try to shoot them because Israel defense system is such that everybody go into shelter, and when everybody goes into shelter, there's this psychological fear. So they have little time to them, and it happened. They don't target Arab cities. It's a mistake, but they don't care of having mistakes because they don't even in any previous conflict between Hamas regime and Israel, they had a lot of rockets that fell in the Gaza Strip because of problems, and when they fall in Gaza Strip, every rocket are killing 20 people, and they said that it was an Israeli missile, but it was a rocket, and they don't care. I'm sorry to say it, but it's more important to them because in Israel, these kind of rockets are usually because Israel was so afraid, because we were sure that this is the biggest thing they can do to us, this kind of rockets. So everybody is used to run to a shelter. You have a shelter in every house. Every house built after 1990 has a shelter, a room inside the house that is the kind of shelters. And usually these kind of rockets are doing little damage. Physical damage. No, physical damage they do, but little casualties because people are in hiding, and there's an aerodrome, and that, from their point of view, that's putting Israel under terror because everybody in all the country, not only in the south, are running away, and you cannot continue that. But after this massacre of October 7th, I think the rockets are the least of our problems.
Thank you, Avi. And that's a very, very powerful point to perhaps end our conversation on. Normally, we would love to welcome you as a scholar only, but now we are just very thankful that you allowed and opened up and offered this time, not just as a scholar, but also as a citizen, as a soldier, and and shared with us this very, very unique perspective that brings these multiple angles and personalities that you have with us. Thank you, Avi.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for your support. And please continue it. Although perhaps the media will change and public opinion will change, the facts. And the facts is that this kind of retaliation is the only way to finish a brutal regime that cannot continue anymore, controlling Arabs and the life of so many Israelis.
Thank you, Avi. And I'm echoing everybody who is sending you good wishes and wishes for safety. We wish that for you, for your family, and for your students, colleagues, and all of Israel as this is unfolding. Thank you, Avi. Stay safe.
Thank you. Merci beaucoup de me recevoir. Thank you for having me.